welcome to another weekly edit. And shock horror, it is not a landscape for a change. At the weekend, it was St. Piran's parade at Redruth High Street, and popped up there because it wasn't raining, which was nice. Just took my little Lumix Micro Four Thirds camera, and didn't get anything amazing, but I quite like this shot that I got. So we're going to go through the edit. It should be a relatively straightforward edit. So here is the shot. So I don't know what the instrument is. I'm not great on instruments, but obviously a brass instrument. Walked past, and it was literally a case of just grab what you can as they're walking past. So I was quite pleased with this. You can actually see me in the shot. There I am in the shot there. So yeah, let's edit this one. It is going to be a black and white because I think it will suit black and white. If we ignore the fact that we've got the red in the background, which we're going to lose a lot of that through the crop. Actually, there's not a lot of colour in the shot. The person was wearing dark clothing. We've got a grey sky reflected in the instrument. There's not a lot of colour in this reflection here. So black and white to me makes sense, and we've got good contrast in the image. So we're in Lightroom Classic. Let's go into edit. As always, if not already, lens corrections are already applied, and we're just going to start from in the edit panel from top to bottom. Let's just have a look what we can recover in terms of highlights and shadows. So with the highlight slider, let's just see, and we can pull back quite a significant amount of information in the reflection of the instrument there. We're starting here, and we'll go sort of somewhere there. We get a lot more detail of these branches of these bare trees in there, which I think really quite nice. It's really interesting. We haven't got just an area of just plain white, blue sky reflected. There's something interesting going around in all of the reflection. We'd like to say it's planned, but it's literally not. Person's walking past and it's just shoot, shoot, shoot. Do the same with the shadows. I'm not going to go too far with the shadows because this is my focal point. I'm not too worried about this blocking up a little bit down here on his arm. At this point, I am going to go black and white. So in the basic panel, I've just clicked black and white, and then by scrolling down, we get to the black and white mix. And I'm just going to play with the sliders. I mean, there isn't an awful lot of colour in there, so I'm not actually expecting these sliders to do an awful much. With the red one, we know there's red in the background here. Actually, I'm probably going to lose a lot of this in the crop. But when I'm playing with it, and we can see it's affecting that area predominantly. There is affecting their hand, interestingly, quite a bit. So going to go somewhere around there. Again, orange, a little bit on the hand. Yellow, a little bit of in the reflections. I'm going to lift that a little bit. See where we have a green. Green's not doing a lot. Aqua, a little bit in the background again, but not much going on the actual reflection. Blue, not an awful lot going on there. So I'm going to stick with those. With my black and whites, as I've probably said previously, I do like to make sure there's some whites and some blacks going on. First thing I'm going to do is under this presence section here is just look at texture and clarity. I'm not going to touch dehaze. I don't think it's a shot that needs any kind of dehaze. Dehaze is, that's what it says on the tin. If you've got, not great sort of visibility in a shot, dehaze can be quite good, especially with skies. It can, distant skies with atmospheric, particles and stuff that's going on in the sky. Dehaze can just help you make the sky pop a bit. But I don't think this kind of shot, it's not something that at this stage I think is going to help. But texture, there's some good texture in here, particularly. So that's where I'm predominantly looking when I'm pushing this slider. Clarity works well for a black and white. I'm going to I'm not afraid to really push that. Again, when I'm doing these sliders, I'm predominantly, my focus is here. I'm not worried too much what the sliders are doing back here. So yeah, pleased with that. And then with the whites and blacks, let's just pause a second. Actually, let's just, if I do a backslash, that's where we started. Again, just a reminder, I've got the keystrokes in the bottom left hand corner of the screen if you are interested in the shortcuts that I'm using. So backslash gets me back to that original edit. Now if I press it again, that's where we are. And I do like doing that while I'm editing, just to see, right, where have I come from and what stage have I got to. With these white and black sliders, what I'm going to do is I want to make sure that there's some whites and blacks in the image, because with a black and white, I think you need some contrast. So if I hold my Option key down on the white slider and then drag it, you get the mask come up. Anything that is white means the pixels are pure white. So I'm not going to go crazy, but something like that. And then the same with the blacks. And I'm not too bothered about too much detail down here, so I'm going to push the blacks a little bit, something like that. Okay, yeah, pleased with that so far. The next stage, I think, probably is just to crop it. And as I say, I'm going to attempt to lose a lot of this, what's going on in the background. And so I'm quite happy to go quite tight to the instrument down the sides here and up the top here. However, I don't want to lose the hands. I actually quite like this hand. It kind of, although you don't see the face of the person playing the instrument, that's maybe where the shot sort of lets itself down a little bit, maybe. But I do like the hand. You do get a sense of, someone's playing this instrument. So that crop's not going to work. This camera, by default, has a 4:3 sensor. So I'm going to change the crop. So under the cropping tool, let's go back. At the moment, it's locked to an aspect ratio of original, which is a 4:3 crop for this camera. And I'm going to change that to something like a 2:3 4:6 crop, which is going to be narrower but longer. And what that should enable me to do is, keep that hand in. Don't want to particularly lose the crop down the side. So, okay. So what we're going to do, actually, I'm not too worried about keeping it to a traditional sort of crop ratio. So I'm actually going to click on the padlock to unlock the padlock. So the padlock will essentially, with the padlock on, you're constraining that crop. It's always, doesn't matter where I go, it's always going to keep that 2:3 ratio. By unclicking the padlock, I can basically do what I want. So I'm going to go somewhere like there, down that top edge, and then somewhere like that down the side. And as I say, I want to try and keep the hands in. So somewhere like that, press enter. That's my crop. Next stage is a bit of masking. So I'm not overly happy with what's going on in the background here. I think naturally your eye tends to be drawn to the human face, just a natural thing that happens. But the focus for me is here. I don't want your eye being drawn out here. So going into the mask tools, I'm going to take a linear gradient and I'm going to drag that down something like that. And you're thinking, well, the mask is going over the instrument, and you'd be right to think that, because anything that's red in the mask is being affected. So now what I need to do, if I expand this panel here, so we've got our linear mask. As mask 1, we've got our linear gradient. What I'm going to do is subtract. So I want to now take away the instrument. So subtract. select object, and then with a brush, very roughly, square brackets to extend the brush. Just gonna, don't have to be too fussy because it's gonna try and detect the object, hopefully. Like that. We'll go down because I don't want the mask impacting any of this area either. Like that. And boom. It's done a pretty good job. Still masking over this area here a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that. As I say, I don't detail in the clothing of the person's not important to me. The mask is not affecting the hands, and we've got a good clean line around this area here, and you can see it on the mask what it's doing. So it's done a pretty good job. So now I can just take my exposure slider and just pull this down. I'm not going to try and go completely black because I just think that looks a bit unnatural. Just going to put it down somewhere like that. There's still a hint of detail going on in the background, but you're not immediately sort of kind of drawn to that area. While I'm in the masking tools, I'm going to take a radial gradient. And as I say, I really like the hand. So I'm just going to take a radial filter over the hand area. Just going to rotate it to match this kind of shape here. As such, something like that. Got quite a soft feather on it. And now I'm going to raise the exposure in this area. Again, not massively, just going to move the mask like this. It's more over the hand. Something like that. So go back into my edit panel. So let's go backslash. So that's where we started. And that's where we are. Yeah, quite pleased with that. I think it's got a bit of punch to it. I don't think there's anything else that I would particularly do with this shot. I'm quite pleased with that. It was a kind of black and white shot. So last thing to do is just to sharpen. So let's pick an area. What should we do? Let's just find an edge like that of the instrument, and again, just push it. I'm just doing it by eye, somewhere around the 80 mark. Hold Option down on the mask, and anything that's pure black I'm not sharpening, so somewhere around there. Yeah, there's the finished article. So started there, finished there. As usual, I'll put the shots up. Let me know what you think in the comments. This video should be going out on the Monday of the evening that I get back from the photography show, hopefully, if everything's gone to plan. So should be recording at the show with Flashbang Wallop. So I'll put a link up to the channel there. Hopefully afterwards, I'll do a bit of a video of what I thought of the show, maybe what gear I bought, if I buy any. Quite wife's next door. Otherwise, I will see you for the next weekly edit. Hopefully I'll be able to take some shots whilst I'm away for the photography show. So maybe the weekly edit will be a shot from the photography show. If not, I will find something else to edit. Until next time, goodbye.